Welcome to the Visually Hidden Selects podcast, where we discuss an independent approach to the art of cinema and explore the subtext of various featured films. My name is Peter O'Brien, and I am an independent filmmaker, author, and musician.
My name is Bendler. I'm a film and stage actor and a pop culture enthusiast.
I'm Anne Milleville, a French screenwriter and producer.
This week's VHS selection is Rocky from 1976, directed by John G. Avildsen and starring Sylvester Stallone, Talia, Shire, Burt Young, Burgess, Meredith, and Carl Weathers. If you have not seen Rocky, then please head on over to the Visually Hidden YouTube channel, subscribe so you don't miss any future selections, check out the video, check out the film, and come on back to the podcast because we will be discussing it openly with spoilers. Here we go. Rocky is one of those films that just has a legendary reputation for a number of reasons, and it's not a big film. It's actually a very, very small story, small production, and it's just very, very unique. And if you watch it today, I feel like it almost doesn't make sense unless you're looking for it. You know what I mean? Like, it is a very, very hyper-focused character study of a film. And if you were to think of a movie or making a movie or telling a story, writing a script like that today, I don't know that it would work, simply because it's so focused on the character and his day-to-day routine. I think a big part of it comes from just Sylvester Stallone and his portrayal of the character. You know, if somebody else were playing the character, it could potentially be quite boring. But I feel like Sylvester Stallone's body language and his demeanor and just what he brings to the Rocky character is really what puts this movie over and catapults it into that legendary stratosphere of cinema. I kind of fell in love with this particular film, though, when I was in my late teens and early 20s, and it really kind of became a big inspiration just from a creative standpoint, specifically with the film I made, Misery Loves Company. I remember watching Rocky a lot around the time I was working on that script, and that's why, in the beginning of that film, it's a kind of a character study, and you're following the character through their day-to-day. It's a very direct inspiration, even though the movies are totally unrelated. You can see the inspiration that I got from this film and from Sylvester Stallone's just approach to writing.
Yeah, I mean, this for me is one of those films where it is the quintessential classic film. It's from that one of the golden ages of cinema, and it's one of those staples that when you talk about movies, all those lists you see, movies you should see before you die, or the 100 greatest films of all time. This is always going to be on all those lists, and rightfully so. And I think for me, as I got older and being a creative person and who tries to make his own art or whatever you want to call it, it is an inspirational story. Not the movie itself, but just then the making of the movie itself is inspirational. And the movie's about an underdog, and Stallone was an underdog in his real life at that time. So it really is underdog story, rags to riches story, inspirational story. It falls into the category of all those things. But I think for me, Rocky's lasting impression on people will probably be heart. And that's a great thing to leave behind.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Steve. And for me, it's the first time I watched it. So I'm sure you're going to say, oh my God, what did you do with your life before? But I didn't know Rocky. I don't know Rambo or whatever.
No, but you get a pass, Anne, but your life is now changed for the better.
Rocky is really kind of like an American institution,
Yeah.
He is
American male, yeah.
Yeah. So for people in other countries who may have not seen it yet, I'm just happy that you watched it, and I'm happy that, I believe you enjoyed it. But I'm also happy that you have the memory and the experience of watching it for the first time. I'm very excited to hear what you have to say about it.
But just to be clear, Rocky is a classic. It's a hit here in France and in Europe. It's just me. I didn't have the occasion to watch it, and now it's done. So, but yeah, the only thing I knew before it was the Expendables. So that's crazy because the Expendables exist because of the success of this film before. But anyway, I was nicely surprised because I thought that this movie was about a boxer. It was a male movie. I didn't see the love story in it. So nice surprise. And for me, it's also a tribute to the American dream, as you said, Steve. The making of the movie and the story itself it's the definition of American dream for me.
Yeah, and it's funny how a lot of that plays into the whole overarching story, right down to the setting, like it takes place in Philadelphia, which is one of the first major cities in our country. The founding fathers, the Declaration of Independence was written here. So setting this story in that city was a stroke of brilliance, but a part of it was also just Sylvester Stallone, playing to his strengths. He's an East Coast guy. You can't hide that.
No, not in him.
He's not going to make Rocky this big time LA smooth talking cool dude. No, he's an East Coast blue collar guy. So he's just writing it to his strengths and what he could effectively portray. And even the director, John G. Avildsen, his track record for character-driven underdog stories, there's a documentary about him, underdog filmmaking. He's got The Karate Kid, he's got Lean on Me, a whole body of work that centers on these really character-driven stories. And then a lot of times just the theme of being the outsider working their way in. I don't think they could have picked a better director for this film. Even Sylvester Stallone, I think he directed 4 out of the 6 Rocky films, but really the tone was established by John G. Avildsen, and Stallone just carried it forward with the development of the character through the writing.
When you're a kid, you don't really understand what that means in the sense of oh, of course he did. He's a movie star. He wrote the movie. That makes complete sense. But then as you get older, and especially someone who wants to be in this business or work in this field, oh shit, that's kind of amazing.
Yeah.
And then when you realize how much you put on the line to get this accomplished, you can't make my film unless I'm Rocky. That takes a massive amount of guts to say something like that. And it could have okay, kid, sure, man, we're not making your movie then. Next. So I don't think enough good things can be said just having that mindset and the things you're willing to sacrifice. He really is Rocky. And I think that's why it translates so well on screen, is because of the quality that just Sylvester Stallone embodies, that never say die attitude. I'm going to make it happen at whatever cost. And it just reads so well. And I'm so glad that he stuck to his guns, because I don't know that I would want to see this movie with somebody else playing it. No matter what else he's done, we don't get any of that body of work unless he stuck to his guns, believed in himself, and made this possible.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering, when I understood that he was the writer, what part of Rocky is in Stallone? You know what I'm saying? Because you said, I think, Pete, in the VHS video, that there is an inspiration from On the Waterfront. And when I heard that, obviously I see the comparison you can have between those two movies. So I was wondering, as you wrote it, is the character is really a part of him? Because it's natural when you write something, sometimes your characters have a bit of your traits, your character traits.
Yeah, I think Rocky really is just a stroke of brilliance, because there's a piece of Terry Malloy, there's a piece of actual boxing characters and history melded in, and then there's again that background that Stallone comes from, which is the East Coast blue collar Italian lifestyle. A lot of people will watch this movie and just think, oh, well, that's just how Sylvester Stallone is. They don't realize how great a performance he is giving in this film. And then a lot of people will not even read the credits and see that he wrote it. Really, I don't think enough can be said about what he accomplished and achieved just on the page, and then to see it through and give it everything that he had, and it's really incredible. I have tremendous respect for Sylvester Stallone as a creative person, and specifically as a writer. Performance, yeah, sure, he's good, but it starts with the word on the page. And for him to be able to lay it down consistently throughout his almost 50-year career and have that in his back pocket at all times, no matter what he's working on, he always has that writer card that he can play to make something better. And then on top of it, he goes to the full Greek god Adonis physique pursuit of, physical perfection. It's wow, man, okay, you've either got time on your hands or a will that just will not quit. And I think that's a big part of the Rocky character, is just that inherent drive. That's where Stallone comes into Rocky. And you see it in the film from the very beginning, in his pursuit of Adrian. Like, he could really probably care less about the fight with Creed. Like, when he's offered it, he kind of turns it down. He's like, I don't want to fight the champ. I'm not that kind of fighter. His pursuit, his goal in the film is to like have Adrian fall in love with him. Like, that's what he wants. Everything else is kind of secondary.
He did the fight choreography.
Yeah.
On top of all this other stuff, it's like, okay, that's, I just think that's a remarkable, I mean, on your, basically your maiden voyage here to write the thing, star in the thing. It's like, wow.
Oh, and I'm sure they would, he probably wanted to direct, but they wouldn't let him direct out of the gate.
Yeah.
That's a big chore, but he earned that position later on. In this case, they needed John G. Avildsen.
Yeah, he already had to fight to play the role, right? So I guess he couldn't direct, play, write, do everything for the beginning of his career,
The direction is great, and it is. And the acting is great. The casting is, perfect. The music, I don't know, like, it's one of those scores where you hear that theme and instantly you start throwing the fists.
Well, yeah, and it's really interesting because there's the score and then there's the theme. And the Rocky theme is actually a song called Gonna Fly Now. And that's like the big, fanfare, like training sequence song. But the score is so appropriate for the film. It's so low key and it's so soft and it just matches the character in such a remarkable way. It's just this like soft little piano. And then when it needs to, it kicks in with like that kind of like funky, energetic, driving music. It really just, it fits the time, it fits the character, it fits the location, and then it fits the story like a glove, like no pun intended.
Yeah.
But Bill Conti, he's a very underrated, I think, composer, but you really get a good sense of his strengths in this score because it is low key, but it is appropriate. We also heard his music in Bad Boys. He did the score for Bad Boys with Sean Penn in 1983. He also went on to do the music for The Karate Kid, also directed by John G. Avildsen. So he pops up here and there, but again, I don't want to say he's underrated because he's exceptional. He's a very functional composer, I think.
He captures a feel, or like my favorite of his is The Karate Kid. I love that. I love that music, and it just, even in Rocky, it just captures a tenderness, especially with those two movies. They're fighting movies, they're fighting for something. It's not always just the obvious fight that they're going to have with their opponents, but they're fighting through life. But then Bill Conti pulls out this tenderness that everybody has. When the fighting stops, when you reflect on yourself or what you want. So he manages to pull that out through the music, and it's quite beautiful.
Yeah, I love the cue when after Rocky has his meeting with Gazzo and he's yelling at the henchman, I should have broke your thumbs. And he walks away and it just starts to snow and there's this soft little piano cue. And then it kind of comes back like fuller during his first attempt at training when he wakes up and he goes for his run and he can like barely make it up the steps. It's just that like soft piano. It's like, that's Rocky's theme to me more so than Gonna Fly. Like that Gonna Fly Now is the fanfare, like show, but really it's just that little soft piano, and you hear it again when he's talking to Mickey outside his apartment. Like that's Rocky's theme right there.
Yeah,
very unassuming, but then it can become this great thing.
When you think about it, with quite a small budget, I would say, I don't know if it's in the 70s it was a small budget to have $1 million for a movie, but let's pretend it was. They were quite fortunate to have Sylvester Stallone has the star and the writer, a good composer, a good director, and also they did something that I was really impressed to see is the fight. When you think about it, it was really ambitious to do such scene for such sequence for a small movie. To have so many people, so I understood that they had extras, but they had to add sequence of a real match, if I understood well, because they couldn't, I guess, afford to make all the scene with all extras from their pocket, but it was still impressive when you think about it. The makeup, the fight, the dance they have in a way. For me, it's like a dance, and in all these extras, I was really impressed to see that in such movie.
Yeah, this film, I mentioned it. It really is kind of it's right on the line of like qualifying for an independent film. You know, the only thing that prevents it is like it did have a major distributor, United Artists, you know, behind it, and it was a fairly significant budget. I mean, when you think about movies from that time, $1 million really is the very, very like low end of a production. You know, comparatively, Halloween, which came out 2 years later, was $320,000. So basically a third of the Rocky budget, you know, for that low budget independent film. So it gives you some kind of an idea of what could have been accomplished in the day for those sorts of numbers. But yeah, with Rocky, you know, I know they didn't have a lot of permits for some of their street filming. They really did like the guerrilla approach of just get out there and just film him running, you know, minimal crew, you know, not a lot of dialogue because it's a lot of it's just training, you know, you're just going to record him breathing. Like, no, you throw the music underneath it and now it sounds better, you know?
Yeah.
And when you think about it, just the small scale of the story, again, they're not going to these exotic locations. They're staying primarily in Philadelphia. I mean, they filmed a little bit in Los Angeles in sound stages and some street insert stuff, but for the most part, it's really a small scale production, you know, as if you were going to film in your neighborhood. And it's not the most glamorous place either. I mean, Rocky's apartment is really is really not very flattering, you
No.
know? So you could literally like walk into any building and be like, this will do, and use it. Like you might even have to like dingy it up a little bit because it might have been too nice. Like, let's go into the alley and get a mattress and wrap it around this hot water heater. Like, what
Yeah.
can we do to really present this in an accurate, realistic light for this character?
I think Philadelphia is the perfect location, like you had said earlier. You're not just for the history of the country, but just there's a grit to it. There's a definitely a working class vibe, especially where in the locations that they shot. But even when they're at Patch, you know, cheesesteaks, I've been there. You know what I mean? And like I know, so like I know that area. So it almost feels for someone who lives on the East Coast, it's like a neighborhood feel to it, and it gives it that gritty credibility where it's like, yeah, if in the movie you're watching Rocky and he goes into like a polished gym like an LA Fitness or something like that, like what? Like, why would this guy train there? But when you see him go into Mickey's place and you see how like run down and bare bones it is, it all makes sense. And then that way, when Apollo enters the story, you see how famous and how polished he is and how glitz and glamour. And then, wow. So you see the complete other end of the spectrum, which adds a believability to Rocky's character.
And he always has his entourage and his three-piece suit, you
Mm-hmm.
know. But yeah, even the gym in proximity to the pet store, it's like they're right across the street from each other. So again, just keeping it small, keeping it focused, keeping it tight, and it just works so well.
And he says he's a neighborhood guy. I fight in clubs. I don't fight in big fights. You know,
Hmm.
it's like, so Rocky also has a self-awareness and he understands the reality of his situation. Like stuff like this doesn't happen to guys like me. He's like, I'm probably not going to beat Apollo, but that's fine. I'll be his sparring partner or whatever. So it's not that he doesn't believe in himself. I think he just believes that his time for that stuff is past,
Hmm.
which, comes out later on with some dialogue with Mickey.
Yeah, and it's something that throughout the course of the series, you see how Rocky transitions out of that world and then returns to it, which is
Hmm.
another really great part about the whole franchise is like the full circle of the character. Because by the time he gets to part 4, you know, and it's like the mid 80s and everything is like in excess and he's driving like, you know, fancy cars. And meanwhile, his opponent Drago is like, you know, like hooked up to machines and like getting pumped full of steroids and all this stuff for
It's like
his
a Gatorade
training,
commercial.
turning into like a real life Terminator. And then Rocky takes it back to basics and goes and trains on a farm because that's Rocky. That's his character. Like he'll always go back to where he comes from and he'll never forget where he came from. And that's a real, I think, also just hallmark of the character. Like no matter where life takes him, he's always going to be that that guy from Philadelphia.
Yeah, you can take him out of the neighborhood, but you can't take the neighborhood out of him.
And it's not that he doesn't believe in himself, it's just he knows who he is, and he doesn't pretend to be somebody else. I think you really see it from the beginning of the film. For me, it's a pure heart, the way he treats animals, the way he talks to Adrienne while she's really shy. She wants to be discreet. She doesn't want to be seen, but he sees her anyway. Yeah, I think he's really a touching character. Just the way he looks at his pictures, also in his apartment, it's really moving. To see the guy with big muscles and able to have such a heart, it's good to see that on screen.
In the beginning of the film, you see Rocky do a bunch of really, really good things, right? He doesn't break the guy's thumb.
Mm-hmm.
How sweet he is with Adrian, how sweet he is with the animals, how he cares about that little girl, telling her don't get a reputation. That's all the people are going to remember you as a reputation. How he tries to keep Paulie out of that criminal world,
Mm-hmm.
for his own good. So Rocky does like probably 10 things that makes you really like the guy before he's even trying to take on Apollo. So that way when the Apollo stuff does come around, you're completely in that guy's corner and you want that guy to succeed on the merits of what kind of human being he is.
Yeah, even picking up the drunk bum played by Lloyd Kaufman, like just all those little characteristics. And that's why, like I said, it's a character study and you're following him through his day to day. And anybody else, it could be boring as heck,
Mm-hmm.
but it's Sylvester Stallone's character and his demeanor, his body language, every single thing that he complements those actions with is what pulls you in. His performance, again, is just, it's incredible, but I've said this before, the cast as a whole, like when you're working with really good actors, it makes everybody better. And I don't think he could have gotten better actors than Burgess Meredith or Talia Shire or Carl Weathers. Like they really bring Sylvester Stallone to another level in this film, especially Talia Shire. I mean, she is basically the other half of this film, of this character, of this story.
I really love this character. I mean, she's the only woman in this film, and for me, it's like the blooming of a rose. She's exceptional, and the performance. I don't know this actress, so I don't know what she did before and after, but the performance she has in this movie, incredible. When you see the first scene and the last scene, it's like two different persons physically, and the way she talks, the way she moves, really incredible.
Yeah. Talia Shire, she is the sister of Francis Ford Coppola, so she appeared in the Godfather films prior to Rocky, and then of course she is the mother of Jason Schwartzman, who we know as Max Fisher from Rushmore. Really, this film, as much as it is Stallone's film and even Avildsen's film, I think this is Talia Shire's film as much as it is the director and the writer and star. Her portrayal of Adrian is really phenomenal because, yeah, as you said, from where she starts, like, talk about an arc. Rocky doesn't have as great an arc as Adrian, I would say, simply because Rocky is always that strong, genuine, driven character. And really, like I said, his only pursuit is to get Adrian to fall in love with him, which he accomplishes about halfway through the movie. From that point on, then it's just seeing things through. But you think about it, it's like at the end of the film, after the fight, Adrian goes into the ring, right? And all Rocky is doing is yelling for Adrian. Like he could care less. Like, get out of here. I don't want to talk to you. He just wants Adrian. He's screaming for Adrian. And the second he sees her, the first thing he says, "Where's your hat?" That's how into Adrian Rocky is.
Yeah.
It's like the last time he saw her, she was wearing a red hat and she loses it in the crowd. And so when she gets to the ring, "Where's your hat?" And then they embrace, and like, that's why the movie ends like on that embrace, on that freeze frame still of Rocky, because he has everything he ever wanted right there in that frame. And now a word from our sponsor.
This podcast is brought to you by Visually Hidden Selects. If you're looking for a spoiler-free recommendation of a classic film with professional analysis and insight, check out Visually Hidden Selects, exclusively on the Visually Hidden YouTube channel.
Yeah, for me, definitely my favorite scene is Rocky and Adrian's first date because we made the comparison with On the Waterfront, and I was a bit disappointed about the love scene in the waterfront because for me it was more a sexual assault than a
Mhm.
love scene, and
Yeah.
and this one you can compare because it's quite shy at the beginning, but you have the intensity and everything, and I love the fact that Rocky insists. He really insists to make her come in his apartment, and you see that she wants to, but she doesn't dare. There's so much respect and so much tenderness, and yeah, it's so cute. I love it. That's something any man watching it take the lesson. It's perfect, definitely perfect.
The thing that I love about their first date is Rocky has no idea what to do, but he'll do anything. Whatever's going. So, what does your sister like to do? She likes to ice skate.
Mhm.
I don't think she likes to ice skate. Just based on what we saw on screen, I think maybe she probably mentioned it once, or they did it together as kids, and
Yeah.
Paulie just remembered that, and so he throws him into this situation. And now it's Thanksgiving. The ice skating rink is, of course, closed. And just the determination of Rocky again comes through. It's like, well, I gotta take her ice skating. So here, how about $8?
Yeah.
He's haggling with the guy for the ice time. He's spending all of his money that he just won, getting beat, by Spider Rico. He's spending it all on this date on Adrian.
And grease the palms of the ice maintenance guy.
Yeah, and it's just it's just a beautiful little scene between two characters, growing, developing, and then as it goes on, when it gets back to the apartment, Adrian's body language, she's like a volcano about to blow. It's like she wants to, but she doesn't want to,
Mhm.
and it's coming across so well. And then meanwhile on the other side, like Sylvester Stallone, he's taking off his sweater, He's just doing everything he can, and he's being charming. He's being funny. I'll call him. Hey yo, Paula, your sister's with me. I'll call you later. Like he's doing everything he can to like break the ice, put her at ease, and like just make her smile.
Or there's big bugs in that room. You should come over in this room. It's safe.
Yeah,
Like that was like the equivalent of the yawn, and then the arm goes around the back. He's like, you might as well come over here.
and I love when he takes her glasses off. And he tells her how beautiful she is. And, she says, don't tease me. And he's like, I'm not teasing you. Like everybody else has teased her entire life.
Mhm.
And he's like so in love. It's
Mhm.
like, it's almost uncomfortable. It's like right on the line, and then when they connect and embrace, and it's just like that's it. There it is. Like all the tension just goes away, and now they can move forward.
Yeah, they slide to
Kind
the
of
floor.
like that's following subsequent scene with Mickey, where it's like there's all that tension and they release it and then they move forward. It's just, again, great writing, great characters.
I think one of my favorite scenes has to be when Rocky goes to the arena before the fight, like the calm before the storm. I just love the music there. I just love him looking around at the banners. As a performer, sometimes I'll go to the theater very early before everyone gets there and just walk around the stage, and the whole theater's empty. There's no one in the seats. It translates to me as for the character, he's realizing this monumental opportunity that he's having and this moment that probably could change his life, and the doubt, I don't know if I could do it.
I love the following scene when he goes back and he realizes, and he's laying in the bed with Adrian. And if you notice, before he goes to the arena, he's sleeping on the couch.
Mm-hmm.
She's sleeping in the bed, so he's a gentleman,
Right.
like first and foremost, but he goes and he lays down next to her and she kind of comforts him, and he just kind of like unloads all of his like thoughts and fears. He's very, very vulnerable at that point. And Adrian is there comforting him. And I think that's also like a big part of what he's just always wanted, was somebody there.
Yeah.
Somebody to comfort him, and after that, in the beginning of the movie, after that first fight, he sits on the bed in kind of the same position, and he's holding the ice, and he's all alone, and he's just trying to console himself. Meanwhile, he's thinking about Adrian. He's trying to think of a joke to tell her in the morning.
Yeah.
So the whole movie is Rocky and Adrian.
His idea of success isn't beating Apollo and winning all this money and being on television. Can I finish the fight? Can I go the distance with this guy who has every advantage that I don't? and can I make Adrian love me? And if he could do those two things, he won. He won the fight. So, like as as the Americans, we always have to have the happy ending nowadays. That's become more and more and more prevalent as time progresses. Because now you sit down and watch this movie, you think, oh, he's going to win the fight because underdog. He comes from nothing. He's going to rise like a phoenix, and he's going to seize the day. Oh, he doesn't win the fight, but he does win the fight. He is successful in what he deems success to be.
Yeah,
He
he wins in
accomplishes
life.
those goals. Right. So in that way, Rocky is fulfilled, and he's achieved his purpose or his goals, and that's what makes the movie beautiful. It doesn't it doesn't matter that he didn't beat Apollo. He did what he set out to do, so he succeeded.
And that's exactly what I wanted to say about this movie, is the fact that it's an happy ending, but not the happy ending you can expect. And I was surprised because, I hate happy endings. And this one, I'm satisfied because he didn't win the fight. I was scared of that. I was scared that he's going to win because everything is quite realistic in this movie. And be honest, we know he's not supposed to win. So I was happy that he just wants to, his only concern is to have Adrian on his side. And I love the fact that just before going to the fight, so he's going to have his face completely destroyed on TV, but his only concern is the fact that she doesn't leave the town. He says, don't leave the town. I think he repeats it, and that's so cute. I mean, nobody thinks that. So it's so cute. I love it.
I mean, as far as supporting cast goes, Burgess Meredith, man, their relationship doesn't start off best buddies, which I think is what's great about the Rocky character is his honesty. Why don't you like me? Says, he said to Adrian, why don't you want to train me? Like he's just right out front with it. There's no pun intended. He doesn't pull any punches. He's right out there. Like, what's the story with this? What's the story with that? He's very brash and bold, but in a very kind and loving way. And I think that's what turns Mickey a bit on him. I mean, obviously, we can't say that Mickey isn't pulled in by the allure of this big title fight because he wants to be around that again.
Well, I think it's more that Mickey just realizes, okay, here's a guy from the neighborhood, and I can actually help him. Like this is a contender now, because he's spending all of his time with these other fighters, and he tells Rocky straight up, like, Gipper's a contender. That's why he got your locker. Like you're a lemon. Go off. Like your time has passed. But then when Rocky is offered that opportunity, it's like, if somebody from my neighborhood and from my gym is going to get this opportunity, it's my obligation to look out for them, no matter what. So Mickey really eats a lot of shit in that scene, when he goes to his house, and Rocky doesn't give him an inch.
No,
like right off the bat, once Mickey does that, you can see Rocky's like whole demeanor change, and he starts looking at his mail and throwing darts.
Yeah.
My favorite line in the whole movie is, "Yeah, I got hard, but I ain't got no locker." Like right there, Rocky's no fucking dummy. He might be a little punchy, but he's a smart dude. He's a street smart dude, and he's not going to just forget stuff, but he's also not going to hold a grudge, which is like the beautiful heart of Rocky.
Yeah.
He's got all this baggage that he's carrying around, and a lot of it is from Mickey, and he just unloads on him in that scene. And once it's out there, the air is clear. Okay, now that we understand each other, let's move forward. And that's one reason why, like, I love that whole, it's like a 7-minute scene right in the middle of the movie.
And you feel uncomfortable.
And it's just those two. Yeah. And you can see like what each actor is doing in that scene. Mickey comes in and he's all like, oh yeah, nice place. Nice turtles. They make good soup, and he's trying to like be friendly, which is totally foreign to Rocky from Mickey at that point. He's done nothing but yell at him the whole fucking movie. It's not even like a power struggle so much as it is like a revealing of the hands. It's like, well, yeah, you got this and you got this and you got this, but I got this and I got this. And, what about my prime? And I'm going to go out there and get my head smashed in, and you want to be ringside to see it. Like, it's just beautiful, brilliant writing, and beautiful just characterization, and then character relationship building.
And I'm glad you explained this character, Pete, because I didn't get that when I watched it, because I just watched it once, and I saw an opportunist in Mickey. So I was a bit upset because I love grumpy characters, and he's the grumpy coach at the beginning. So I liked the character, and I was a bit upset when he came to visit Rocky, and I totally understand Rocky's reaction, because for me, he was an opportunist. He didn't believe in him, and suddenly, because he's involved in a big fight, he wants to help, like, I'm your buddy, blah blah blah. No, you you didn't believe in me. I didn't have a locker, so that's your I mean, don't talk to me. I mean, I was like that when I watched the scene, but now you explained it, it makes sense, really. And I love the relationship they have, definitely.
Yeah, I always wondered what would have been for Rocky had Mickey took an interest in him earlier on. Because he's like, I didn't get involved with you because you're involved with Gazzo, doing all that stuff, breaking kneecaps and whatever. But maybe if you stepped in earlier, he wouldn't have had to do that, So that's an interesting dynamic to have.
And that's a great reflection of life too, and like the way real characters, the way real people think of each other and interact with each other, like that again just lends a tangibility to these characters that a lot of people can relate to.
But I love when Mickey leaves the apartment defeated, and then Rocky runs after him, and we don't hear what goes on.
Yeah.
But we know what goes on. Like, you don't have to hear it, but you just see these two guys and a handshake, and it's like, all right, let's get to work now. Now, game on. So when we talk about these relationships with Rocky, I love Burt Young, but I have never, ever liked the character of Paulie.
Oh, no, Paulie.
He's on that list of despicable characters next to Grandpa Joe from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It's just like one of those guys that's like no fucking redeeming qualities whatsoever. It's just like, get this guy away from me. That's what furthers Rocky being upset, right? So like Paul is like, oh, if you need somebody, you need some help, I'm always, like, okay, so now that once you heard there's $150,000 prize on the line for Rocky, it's just like, oh, if you need me now for something.
Well, no, I think Paulie was always there for Rocky,
Yeah, with the meat and all that stuff.
Like he was always his friend, but Paulie has a lot of problems. Let's not even try to sugarcoat it. He's, and then I give you my sister, it's like
she's a price to give. First of all,
it's just his whole outlook is like clearly skewed, and clearly he has a drinking problem. They show him knocking a few back while he's at work, and then first time we meet him, he's in the bathroom in the bar and he takes the drink and leaves. He's always stumbling home.
His ears perk up when he hears the money prize on the news when they're watching Apollo on TV. And then right after that, like Mickey's at his apartment. So for Rocky, it must have felt like, oh, here they all come. They got a whiff of the cash and a whiff of the fame. And that's what Paulie really desires. He wants to be important in his life. He wants people to notice him and to feel special. And then so the minute he gets some kind of money, he gets that escort to come with him to the fight. He's got a suit on. He wants to be somebody. And he's nobody at the moment. And when he sees his buddy Rocky is about to, possibly get elevated in his life, he's trying to cling on to that, like, what can I get out of this? Calling the reporters. And so, he's a bit of a hanger on, but he's such a sad sack.
Yeah, but I also feel like it's not like he came out of the woodwork, like
no,
Paulie was always there. He's like always been there. He invites him over for Thanksgiving, and even though it goes awry, but I feel like Rocky was right to keep those people in his corner. Like, he had the right people in his corner.
Yeah.
If like Mr. Gazzo's thug driver came around, Rocky should punch that dude's lights out, because he's talking shit the whole movie, and that, like, that, you know what I mean? That relationship is not genuine. And I feel like it probably broke Mickey's heart to see Rocky go down that road of, loan sharking and everything, but he's probably seen it, 100 times in that neighborhood running the gym, You
Yeah.
know, I'm sure a lot of people come and go, and he's not involved in Rocky's day-to-day life, so he doesn't actually know the drive of the character. And even with Paulie, you know, like he's still a part of Rocky's life like beforehand. So he's right to stay in that circle and in that loop throughout the series.
And also, for me, it's the funny part of the movie, Polly. I mean, it makes me laugh. Maybe that's the French in me, the French humor. I don't know, but yeah, the Thanksgiving scene, as you said, it was so embarrassing that you laugh at the end. I mean, everybody is embarrassed during this moment, and I love the moment also. He tries to get caught on camera during the TV interview. It's so funny. I mean. So I love this character. I agree with all what you said, but yeah, I mean, this guy is lost. He's a bit of a loser, but the behavior he has with his sister is just awful. I mean, there is no good words to talk about it. But that's also something I like about Polly and his sister. You see the evolution thanks to him. You see how she evolves because at the end she kind of fight with him. She has the balls to fight against her brother, and so that's the use of this character, the fun part, and also the fact that he helps Adrian to evolve.
I love when Adrian gives it to him. Finally, it's like it's so great. But what I love about because the dynamics in these character relationships for this specific film is so good because Rocky, like you just said, he gives her that confidence, right? He kind of wakes her up as a person, and like in a way that like Paulie tries to do it, but every time Paulie does it, it always has like a backhanded compliment or a put down. She's got to get out of the house. She's drying up. Paulie's always has a bit of a nastiness to him with Adrian, but what Rocky really tries to bring her, like, you're worth something. You're like, whatever, you're better than this, or just gives her that feeling about herself. Like, I like you. I'm interested in you. And then he does, in the same turn, he tries to keep Paulie out of that lifestyle. He tries to keep him clean. He tries to keep him honest. So he's trying to help both people in different ways, but his compassion is the same.
And now a word from our sponsor.
This podcast is brought to you by Visually Hidden Selects. If you're looking for a spoiler-free recommendation of a classic film with professional analysis and insight, check out Visually Hidden Selects, exclusively on the Visually Hidden YouTube channel.
I don't think enough good things can be said about Carl Weathers.
No.
Charisma for days. He looks like $1,000,000. I mean, what such an unbelievable smile, and he just brings a life to this character, which is the complete opposite of Rocky. And there are scenes in the movie where Apollo just seems like a politician and not a boxer.
Oh yeah.
And then Rocky kind of brings him back down to reality, like, hey pal, you asked for a fight with me, you're gonna get a fight from me. And he's like, holy shit, this guy, he thinks, Apollo, he thinks this is a fight. You can't, because he comes out showboating with the hat and the wig like George Washington, and like
throwing the money.
Yeah, it's hilarious. But then all of a sudden it's like, reality check, pal, you want to fight? I'm here to fight you. So like Rocky, even I would say, helps Apollo.
Totally. Well,
get back in touch with who you are.
Yeah, well, at that point, and a lot of this comes about in Rocky 3, that whole dynamic of their personalities, it's like Apollo gets to that level where, yeah, he feels like he's untouchable and he's beating everybody. So like, yeah, I could just show up. I don't need to train. I'm just gonna like walk in and, shake hands with the mayor as I, go up to the stage. Like, no big deal. Like, I got this. And then he's so out of touch, in that first round, Rocky knocks him on his ass.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, oh, this is how we're doing this. Like, he's totally blindsided in a number of ways because he is so far removed from Rocky's state in life. But as you go through the franchise and you learn more about Apollo and where he came from and everything, it's like, it's such a circular story all around, and it's not unique to Rocky specifically. Mm-hmm. And I think that's also just a brilliant part of this this franchise and this story, and and Sylvester Stallone as a writer.
I'm glad to hear
Yeah,
that you know a little bit more in the franchise about this character, because that's something I wanted to say as I just watched the first film. It's a bit frustrating because you understand the character quite easily. He doesn't have much scenes, but you understand what kind of personality he has, and you want to know how he became like that. But I agree with you, Steve, on the fact that this guy is too good looking to be a boxer. That's the thing I thought when I watched it. He's too good looking. He's such a mess to punch this face. I mean, he has such a charisma and everything. You don't want to to fight against this guy.
Yeah, he's a handsome devil.
Yeah.
Like, such charisma, such personality. I don't know that they could have got anybody better to play Apollo Creed.
No.
Because he was so polished and so handsome and suave. It was the absolute best opposition for Rocky's character, who's this gritty, down on his luck neighborhood guy. It really sold, because Carl Weathers looked the way he did. It really sold it for Rocky.
Yeah, you couldn't get more opposite. Like, Carl Weathers has like tone and definition, and Rocky's still a little, he's fit and he's strong, but he's not cut. He doesn't have the definition that he does in later films.
Yeah, he's not Rocky 3 yet.
Yeah, and so just that complete opposite presentation. And even in the posters, Rocky's kind of hunched over, almost looking like meek, like he's like trying to protect himself, and Apollo's just standing like a superhero with his big smile,
like a Greek god. It just shows you how different they are. But like as you said, Pete, as the movies progress, you find out more about Apollo and his whole relationship, and he's an anchor for the franchise, and in the relationship between him and Rocky is such a cool one. It's really,
that's another
stuff.
reason why I love this film, is just because of the introduction of that relationship to cinema. Yeah, and then the first half of the movie has almost nothing to do with the fight.
Yeah,
it's all about Rocky, trying to win over Adrian, and then about halfway through he gets the offer, and then it becomes that balance of like the life he had and the life he has.
Mm-hmm.
And just seeing it through, and like, how can I make these things work?
Yeah, you think about his loan shark boss, Gazzo, comes down to Pat's cheesesteaks and gives him money.
I love Joe Spinell.
Yeah.
Joe Spinell is one of my all-time favorite character actors. And in this film, he really is just a credit to the authenticity of this world that we're witnessing.
Yeah, like here's a guy telling like, Rock, I tell you to break your thumb, you break your thumb. You got to do what I tell you to do. You make me look bad. But like,
with his inhaler.
Yeah. Yeah. But he's like supposed to be this, this bad guy from the wrong side of the tracks, a thug kind of a character. But like, he believes in Rocky so much. Here's $500, Rock. He's like, of course I'll be there ringside. Like, and he shows up to the fight.
Yeah, there's so much in this film to just fall in love with.
Mm-hmm.
The characters, the shots, the story, the performances, the setting. It's really the only word I can think of that like comes close. Is just, it's beautiful.
I agree.
That will about do it for us here today at the Visually Hidden Selects podcast. We will be discussing a completely different film next time, so be sure to head over to our YouTube channel and subscribe so you don't miss any future recommendations. You can catch Stephen Bendler over on Instagram at Steve's Pop Culture Corner. Anna and I, of course, are also on Instagram as well as Letterboxd, so you can follow us over there and find out what we've been watching and see what we think. And until next time, go the distance.